Go. Yay. Okay. Kristen Kalp is here with us. I'm so excited about this. You are welcome to the School of Bravery show.
Welcome to my bed. Here it is.
Welcome to my office. I'm just so excited to chat with you about this because we already started and I was like, oh, wait. We got to start the recording before we get to this any good stuff. First, before we go back into our conversation, you are Kristen Kalp, kristenkalp.com. Your link is below to all your stuff. What is it that you do? And why do you have such magical hair?
I make books, breathwork, and business coaching for fairly magical humans to mostly magical humans. And if hair came in all colors at birth, mine would have come out exactly this color, possibly a little darker. We're a little light on the cotton candy right now. But people do walk up and ask if they can smell it. And I'm like, it doesn't smell like cotton candy. I'm sorry. Like, it's not edible. It's just the illusion of edible. That's all it is. So
That is awesome. I feel like if you were in, I don't know, in some showbiz town, you would need to walk around with and spray cotton candy smell in your hair just so that you would continue the illusion. Just really give it to the people. Give them what they want.
I am a cartoon character, everyone. Here I am. Like, that's all it is.
So this month in the School of Bravery, we're focusing on imagination and reading shadows. And the story that I told before we started recording was that when I was young, 4 or 5 years old, on Christmas Eve, I woke up to go to the bathroom and walked past the living room, which had a tree that was lit up and a big, dark, scary monster in front of the tree. And I ran into my parents' bedroom and did not wake up. I mean, I woke up, obviously, but did not wake up at the 4 a.m. time that I normally would wake up to open presents. Because what I thought was a monster was actually a dollhouse that was handmade and had little electrical sockets and things. It was so beautiful and wonderful. I think my parents still have it in their garage, but a little baby electrical outlets and all little furniture and there's carpeting and all. It was a beautiful dollhouse. And I thought it was a monster. And so that's what I use as a metaphor for reading shadows. And when we're trying to be brave, it's really hard not to read shadows because we're trying to anticipate how our bravery is going to be received by people, or when you put yourself out there for that rejection. How we read shadows very much plays into how we imagine our success or imagine our failure. So I know that this is relates to your magical world of cotton candy hair. So I wanted to have you on and talk about some of this stuff. Do you have any initial thoughts?
My initial thought is just that shadows come in lots of sizes, and you're particularly in anything that involves bravery, your tendency, if it's anything like mine is to go for the biggest shadow first. And it might be that you sort of build it like a muscle and you're like, that's a little tiny shadow. I can totally knock that down, like whack-a-mole. And then you play larger whack-a-mole. And then eventually you get to the very big shadow. It's actually a much easier way to do life than to just go for the biggest, scariest first. And then you're like, oh God, that was terrible. And it takes you down for a long time. And by the time you come back up, it's even bigger and even scarier. And so it sounds to me a lot like let's play whack-a-mole. People, especially entrepreneurs, are really scared to communicate. They're scared to be vulnerable online. They're scared to say anything true. It's so much easier to retweet, repost, let someone else be brave, and then I'll just be like, oh, look, I believe in what they say. Yeah. And the truth is that you don't have to be 100% vulnerable. You don't have to go from talking about nothing and being quote unquote professional to talking about the status of your OBGYN visit and how it went. There's a spectrum of shadow in there, but there's also a spectrum of just vulnerability in there. Because I think shadow is in some way tied to vulnerability. And if you can't be vulnerable with yourself first, you shouldn't be being vulnerable with other people. That's going to go horribly awry in ways you can't even imagine.
Yeah, totally. In my book, Bare Naked Bravery, and in the School of Bravery also, there are 3 main ingredients for bravery: vulnerability, imagination, and improvisation. And each of those 3 have sub-ingredients. And reading shadows is a sub-ingredient of imagination. So of course it has to do with vulnerability. I mean, like when we are anticipating something that we don't know the answer to, right away, we already are vulnerable, because we are exposed in some way to a weakness, that lack of knowledge, or lack of assuredness, even if we swear up and down that it's a monster,
right?
we feel very confident. We are still vulnerable because we are like in full belief of something that is false. Can you give me an example of something in your life or your business, or another story of clients that you were like leaning full into the shadow, thinking like, I am so confident that this is a monster, or this is going to turn out poorly, or this is going to be successful, and then lo and behold, it was not that?
I've had it both ways, actually. I've had it like, this is kind of dumb. Nobody actually wants this. This is a total waste of time. And have it be like a really big, like 6-figure earning product that I was just sort of like, okay, which becomes a shadow of its own because I wasn't all that interested in it to begin with. And then people want you to be the expert talking about the thing. And I'm like, guys, this is actually really basic and boring to me. I kind of want it to stop now. So having that, not unexpected success, and then following that being like, oh my God, well, if I can do that with this, then I could do this with that. And I could make the most amazing, spectacular thing that ever existed in the history of the world. And obviously it would completely sell out in like 42 minutes because that last thing was so popular. And that turned into an event that cost me like my marriage and $43,000 in debt. So like sometimes you think like you just read it all wrong. And I've had it happen.
It's important to remember that effort doesn't always equal success.
No, because if effort equaled success, a lot of us would be fucking billionaires by now.
Right.
Like, it's not just
and yet
trying hard.
And like we logically know that, but yet when we are in the midst of like we're in the trenches, that piece of logic is kind of a hard one to come by.
Oh yeah, like the answer is always like double down, work harder, be more pro, streamline the whole thing, more systems, more effort, more work, more productivity. Mm-hmm. And it's often, that's a shadow that I think our culture reads wrong. But it's often, if you would just step away for a moment or a few moments or a full 24 hours without a phone, things could be very different. And you could see the whole thing from a different angle really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have this past couple of days, because I just moved to Nashville, and I, after like a month of full travel and conference going and networking and driving a lot of hours and lots of travel and everything, so like running full tilt, I got here and wanted to jump right back into School of Bravery stuff, all like so hardcore. Like mentally, I wanted to be doing all the work, but so tired.
Mm-hmm.
Really so tired.
It was like, yeah, that sounds exhausting. Yeah.
Like I really want to lay out all my entire year. But I also really want to take a nap.
Yeah, which means take the nap.
Yeah, exactly. And so I have learned over failing at reading shadows that when that impulse to take the nap happens, it's actually better for my business and my creativity if I just fucking take the nap. Mm-hmm. Because what happened this last weekend was, while I'm taking a nap, I have like my subconscious is able to like make those connections that needed to be made. And I've actually like in my head already got the year planned out in my head. So I don't have to do I don't have to physically do the work in order to have the work done.
Yes. Like if you make space and time, it will often come to you as, like, for lack of a better term, a download. And then your job is just to run to paper so you can catch it like before it, because you're not going to remember it later. Just write it all down. And then you're like, oh my God, that would have been so many hours of just like pulling and pulling, instead of like, oh no, it's just time for it to come out now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know in the songwriter realm, like just voice memos are the thing, like constantly voice memoing yourself.
That makes perfect sense.
Because you're like, this happened yesterday. As I was getting in the shower, I was humming something, whatever it is. Maybe it's this thing that I have yet to create. But humming something was like, oh, I really love that melody, and just grab my phone. And I thought, like, can I remember that while I take a shower?
No,
I can't. So I like
answer.
ran through the apartment totally naked, trying to find my phone so I could like sing it into the phone and then go take a shower.
Yes, because brain always lies and is like, you're totally gonna remember this in the morning. Like, I swear, I promise. And I'm like, it never ever. I'm getting my teeth. That's what this kerfuffle is. It's always lying. It's 100% lying. And I wake up and I'm like, that I don't remember anything.
Right.
It's gone now. It's gonna have to come back and visit me at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone now.
So if you don't want to talk about this, I'm totally game for you to say I'd rather not. But let's talk a little bit about what it was like to lose that money and the marriage to reading a shadow.
Yeah. I'm surprised that you were like, okay, so anyway, I'm like, all right, well, that's okay. That was not interesting then.
No, it's interesting. I just knew we had to like get there.
The marriage was doomed to failure, and I'm actually really grateful that the financial pressure brought every last shadow that was in that relationship out, and it was all like, oh, this is the great myth about marriage is that it takes effort. It just takes so much work, and it's just constant work, and it's work. And the secret is that, like, it takes attention, but if it's 100% work, it's no longer a marriage. It's just like it's a failed creature. It's a dead creature. Any creature that's just 100% effort is a dead creature, regardless of how much you try and revive it. So we acknowledge that the marriage was dead. That did not go as planned, but it turned out all right. And then the money part, I legitimately don't recall. There were about 6 months between saying I want a divorce and when I met my now partner of like 4 years. I legitimately don't recall a single thing, but I do know that I continued to earn the money that I needed to earn. I know that within a year I had paid the money back. I know that I didn't do anything shady or weird. I didn't like suddenly embezzle funds from somewhere. Some part of me just went into the purest survival mode possible and was able to just get me through and keep getting me through. And I would say that the emotional reverberations of that, I probably didn't process for a good year or two, because I was just in such like bunker mode. We must survive this. It has all gone horribly awry. This is so wrong.
Well, I wonder, I mean, I'm sure there's some science to this. I just don't know it yet. But I wonder if there is something to that bunker mode, because I have been in similar seasons of my life, like, holy shit, stuff has hit the fan, and like, let's just do the next thing, and then do the next thing. And after all the interviews that I did for my book, I hear that a lot, that like when it becomes crunch time, if you ask someone who's gone through that crunch time what happened or how they went through it, they don't really know, because they're in a shadow season, right?
You just survive it. And you don't necessarily get a whole lot of wisdom on the other side, except I survived and I'm not going to do that again. Like that particular mistake, I'm not going to make again. That's all I've got in that realm.
But I feel like it's so forgiving that our psyches don't remember that.
Like, oh my God. Thank God.
You know?
Yes. I'm so grateful that that's just like, I don't know, I survived. Everybody got paid back. Go, everyone. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the shame around it, like, I didn't talk about it. That was 4 years ago. I didn't talk about it for a good 2 years. I was like, I'm never going to talk about this. And then eventually it was like, oh no, I can talk about this. Like, it might be helpful for other people to realize. And for some people, I'm sure 43 grand is not a lot. For me, that was like the entirety of my life and an additional, like,
Well, that's
it was a
higher.
tremendous amount of money for me.
That amount is a livable wage for a year.
Yes. Yes. It's about the average of what a person in the United States makes in a year.
Right.
And that was just debt. That was not in addition to like, oh, so I have to keep eating.
Right.
So yeah, it was a tremendous amount of money. And I did it. And you come out braver on the other side with like, one, perhaps don't risk that much money again, because it wasn't investor money. It wasn't backed by like the Shark Tank people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was just mine.
Right.
And then there are ways to set yourself up for success that might be really, 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 really helpful for you. And it might mean that you ask for more help than you think is necessary on the front end, just so that if the back end works out, maybe you don't need the help. But if the back end doesn't work out, I could absolutely have used more support on the back end. And I didn't know who to ask or who to turn to or how to even talk about the amount of shame that I was in. Because I'm a business coach with that much debt. It was just like, it ate at me that I had somehow lost my car. I'd lost my right to talk about business, lost my right to talk about money or how to do anything. Mm-hmm. Instead of like, you guys, this is the biggest mistake I've ever made. Well, aside from my marriage. And let's dive into how this happened, why this happened, how this can not happen to you, why, and how we can prevent this. Like, so I can go into prevention mode for a company much more easily now, because I'm like, you're counting on that as a sure thing. There's no sure thing here.
Yeah. I mean, so essentially you're a professional shadow reader now that you have failed to read a big shadow.
Oh my God. Yes, I can see it. And it's so much easier to spot the little ones, because the little ones will grow. Like, given time, the little ones that you're like, well, I'm just always living a touch beyond my means, will eventually grow into a much bigger thing if you give it time and you allow it to take its like wiry course.
So let's talk a little bit about how you spot them. Also, please show us what is on your mug.
I can't accio a single fuck is on my mug. My Harry Potter finalia.
Love it. So when you're looking at someone's business or someone's plan for the future, because I know that we've got a lot of artists and other creative folks listening and fans of music and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we're talking about everyone. How, like, when you're looking at someone's life or their plans, how do you, like, what are some red flags for this is a shadow that isn't a sure thing, or this is a situation that needs to be looked into further?
In general, I try to keep planning at the 6-month mode. So anybody that's like, I've got my next 5 years planned out, shadow. Anybody that's like, I don't know what's happening next week. Like and not just, I don't remember, but let me check my calendar, but like literally no idea what's happening next week. Also a shadow. So inability to plan and way over planning. I once had a client come to a workshop and she was like, in 5 years, when I begin my business, I will be doing X, Y, and Z. And I was like, whoa. Why are we putting it off 5 years? And usually if it's a mom, they say that's when my kid goes to kindergarten, which is kind of phoning it in, but I'll allow it sometimes. But often the work that you want, you can begin to do right now. And so can you begin any part of that right now instead of just continually pushing it down the road?
I think that is so powerful. There's a lot of, I know, so I do Danielle Laporte. This is here, I'll turn my computer.
Your desire mapper?
I'm a desire mapper. So those purple tags are my words that I go for. And that has been a life-changing acknowledgement for me. When I first read the book, it was like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And knowing that what you really want out of life is to be connected or vibrant, that helps you make those decisions now rather than have to make the decision to be vibrant in 5 years. So I love that. I'm all huge advocate for the fact that you can do the stuff now.
Always. And make the crappy version of the thing. So perfectionism is always a shadow. It doesn't have a whole lot of upside to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll have people that have things coming soon for like 6 months to a year on their website, or they will hire me and I will say, okay, here's what I would recommend. I think we might need to take a look at this, this, and this on your website. And they'll be like, oh, no. I already have a new website done. It's just hasn't been published yet. And I'll be like, can I have a link to that one? And then they'll show me and it's perfect and wonderful, but a little bit more vulnerable than they'd like. And it's always like, how long has this been done? Like 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 14 months. Perfectionism is just sitting on something that you have already done that is way more than adequate most of the time. So perfectionism is always a shadow. And it's usually to hide from being vulnerable. Like if I could just get this font right, no one will ever criticize me ever again. If I just dial it in, Helvetica New, 14 point, it's it. That's it. I'm perfect. I'm set. And that's just never the case, sadly.
Yep. I mean, been there.
Yeah.
Been there. I just released a new single, a new song, and it's on Spotify and all the other places, and it is not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to that point where I was like, it has been way too long since I've released something. Not just for perfectionism reasons, but because of that, I did not want perfectionism to be the thing that held me back from just finally just let it out. Like,
Yes.
let the song out, let the thing out there.
Yes. And often the thing that people love will be the imperfections. There's a really great podcast named On Being with Krista Tippett.
Yes.
She releases the unedited and the edited. And I always listen to the unedited. I just want to hear people like gasp and cough and laugh and say weird things and smoke and do whatever they do. I love that so much more than the polished, like quote unquote, perfect version.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Okay. So you've got inability to plan or over plan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just writing these all down. Perfectionism. Is there a third one? Perhaps.
There are people I've observed that when they make their calendars, it somehow comes back to scheduling. Some people just want everything to be free time, so they have to schedule their tasks. I think that's where I fall. Like I'm very happy to fall into doing nothingness until there are tasks. And then there are the people I call the Tony Robbins people, which is every minute of every day must be filled with productivity. And so free time has to be scheduled. So it's helpful. That's not a judgment either way. It's just knowing which one you are. So often I will help the Tony Robbinsers and those types to put free time on the calendar first, and help the people that are not good with structure to be like, okay, but these things really have to get done every day. Mm-hmm. And so just taking that, because obviously that's sort of working with your shadow, because the shadow side of the Tony Robbins-ish crowd is that you're just always busy, always hustling for every last bit of your worth. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, you have the sort of I'm going to do that tomorrow people that never do any of it tomorrow. So they both have shadows. And if you can just schedule for who you actually are, not who you're going to be in 10 years, there's a lot of self-acceptance and self-love that can happen there. And just like, this is the way I work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's work with the way that I work. It's so much easier than trying to become a different person.
Yep. One of the red flags that I work with when I'm doing coaching or consulting for audience strategy is assuming that other tools are going to be the same. And you kind of touched on this a little bit before we started recording. You don't have control over Facebook. Mm-hmm. And when I see the business's marketing plan is entirely reliant on Facebook ads, I get really scared. Mm-hmm. Because Facebook's going to pull a plug somewhere, or mm-hmm. like Russia's going to cause Facebook to freak out for the month. Yep. And it's happened, like the business goes from like lots of sales and new users and things, and then Facebook pulls a plug somewhere, and then all of the Facebook ad marketers are like freaking out. Yeah. Eyes are twitching and things because they don't have control. They think they have control over something that they actually don't have control over. So whenever I see a business that is, or an artist or someone else who is confident that something they can't control will always stay the same, or confident that they control something they actually can't control, that's a big red flag.
Yes. Yeah. That when you were like, listen, I have 80,000 Instagram followers. I'm good. Um, but do you trust Mark Zuckerberg with the entirety of your
livelihood?
Yeah.
And your
Because I
career.
certainly don't. Like, no, I would not trust Mark Zuckerberg with 10 of my cents. 10 cents.
Even if he and I had sat down for burgers someplace, I still wouldn't like do that. Like, it's just not a smart thing to do, to just hand your business over to somebody else. It's not a wise thing to do. And some people may say that, like, that's, kind of a glass half empty approach to dealing with other people and other businesses and things like that. But at the same time, it's just not wise to be leaning so heavily on someone else or something else for the success of your business. So
yeah, I think there's wisdom in some way owning your platform just as much as you can in the online space. So can you contact everyone who's ever purchased you in some fashion via snail mail or email or texting? If no, that's your goal for the immediate future. Because you might be paying hundreds of dollars to talk to your Instagram followers in just a few days or hours, because who knows? And so my first strategy with business people is always like, who can you talk to and how many people can you talk to? And does that accurately reflect the number of people that you can access via your social media channels? That's a really good starting point for being able to really talk with the people that want to talk with you.
Yeah. I'm just writing down controlling things you can't control.
Good luck with that.
But I'm putting controlling in parentheses.
Yes.
Controlling things you can't control.
Yes.
Is there, before we end, is there another thing, another red flag that you can think of?
This doesn't happen often, but it happens enough that I can bring it up, which is that someone will contact me and they will say, I just want to talk about X. I do not want to talk about my relationship with my father, my taking up space in the world, or vulnerability, because I've handled those things. And my response is, the only things we will be talking about are your relationship with your father and taking up space in the world and vulnerability. So anytime that you come to me with, I really don't want to talk about, that's where we begin. The places that you don't want to talk about are the places that you most desperately need to talk about.
Yep. So I'm putting down ironclad boundaries.
Yes. And ironclad boundaries can be really fantastic with like, oh, you're a homeless man that wants to touch my breasts. That's a no.
Yeah.
But anything that is like in any sort of coaching situation where things can get sort of tricky, like if you walked into your therapist and you were like, we're not talking about my dad, your therapist is immediately
your therapist going, yeah, we're talking about your...
like, we know exactly what to talk about now. Done. Good.
Yeah.
That's the next 6 months sorted.
Right.
So being aware of any of those places that you're like, oh, we are not talking about that. That's a shadow that needs to be examined very clearly, and preferably soon.
Agreed. So you have an awesome little teaching that you've offered the School of Bravery students, and I'm so excited because I have done a breathwork session with you before. So spoiler alert, it's a breathwork session, y'all. Kristen does these phenomenal meditation things. I have never experienced a meditation like it before. It was really, really bizarre and awesome and cool.
Well, good.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And so in the School of Bravery, every month we have a guest expert. Kristen is our guest expert for the month. And every guest expert gets to offer the students something awesome. And Kristen is generously offering a breathwork session, plus a little bonus training bits and pieces. So we're going to record that here in a second. And if you guys are interested, you can go to schoolofbravery.com and check that out. If you're interested in working with Kristen Kalp directly, go for it. She's awesome. KristenKalp.com. And with that, do you have anything final words for the people?
Final words. Thank you so much for letting me speak about shadows, and go conquer some shadows, preferably small whack-a-mole size ones.
Yes.
I think that's a good place to start.
Yes. Whack-a-mole shadows.
Yes.
Love it. Love it.